for the purchase of liquid fuel for electricity generation plant. And with all of this, amid the looming power crisis, according to the Energy Minister, John Gyamfi, saying that fuel stock for power generation has dwindled to less than 3 days, raising fears of an imminent nationwide blackout. Now, he told members of Parliament's Energy Committee that while some fuel has been ordered, funds are currently unavailable to pay for the supply. He said without immediate funding, power generation could grind to a halt. That's what we're faced with right now, and that's why I bring in Richmond Rockson. He's a private legal practitioner, but also the head of public affairs for the Energy Ministry. He's joining us on the telephone right now. Mr. Rockson, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you, Alfred, and good evening to your listeners.
Now, first off, I mean, this is troubling to say the least, is it not? If we're now getting to know that we need $1.1 billion to procure liquid fuel alone, and this has to come in the shortest possible time, or in the next 3 days we might be found wanting.
Well, good evening to your listeners once again. Let me clarify that the Parliamentary Select Committee for Energy invited the Minister for Energy and Green Transitions together with his agencies today for an engagement, and the Minister obviously had to honor it. At that forum, questions were asked, clarifications were sought, and that the Minister responded to these questions. The first point is that, yes, it is true that as of now, we have about 2.5 days of LCO to power some thermal plants. It doesn't mean that we don't have natural gas at all. We still have natural gas. But when it comes to the plants that run on LCO, we have only 2.5 days cover. The reason is because there are critical financial constraints in the energy sector as we speak. Because the ministry or the minister in this government inherited a very dire situation in the energy sector. The sector currently has a debt of about $3.1 billion US dollars. Beyond that, every month, the ECG has under recoveries of over $2 billion each month. If you put that together in a year, you're looking at close to $30 billion. The other major challenge is that the fuels that are used to power these plants are not part of the tariff structure. So every now and then, the Ministry of Energy has to fall on the Ministry of Finance to be able to procure fuels to power our plants. This is unacceptable. This shouldn't be the case, because if you are selling power, at the end of the day, you should be able to recover. If anything, you should be able to break even. So if you're unable to make profit because you are not a profit-making entity, you should be able to make at least break even. But that is not what is happening. Every month beyond that, the ECG struggles to recover all monies that for electricity that it has sold. So that is the challenge that we face. The good news is that 450,000 barrels of LCO has been procured. We're expecting the fuels in country tomorrow. Funding will still be a challenge, and consistently would have to engage the Ministry of Finance to be able to pay for these fuels. That is the challenge that we face as a sector.
So as the fuel is expected tomorrow, but then again, we haven't paid for it, right?
Yes, we haven't paid for it. The Finance Ministry has to find money to pay, which is unfortunate. Ordinarily, that shouldn't be the case, and that is why the Ministry of Energy and Finance as well, they're looking at structural reforms, especially when it comes to the tariff structure. Because if you don't have reserve margins included, you don't have fuel included, at the end of the day, the government will have to look for funds elsewhere, the taxpayers' money to fund that. If you remember, around 2014, 2015, these are some of the challenges that we had in the petroleum downstream sector. Eventually, what happened was that deregulation was introduced, and then these problems were resolved. So the ministries are looking at an amendment to the tariff structure. There are several proposals before Cabinet that moving forward, we are sure that some of these issues will be resolved.
But quite apart from that, we have the IPPs as well, debts that we're faced with, the $1.7 billion and over that we owe independent power producers. What's a plan to clear that?
That is the honest truth, and it all forms part of the bigger picture that we're looking at when it comes to the energy sector. The total debt today stands about $3.1 billion. Like I said, that excludes fuel, but it excludes invoices that ECG pays within the year. Last year, for example, and this is aside the debt. Last year, for example, the invoices presented were about $1.3 billion. ECG pays $423 million. The government of Ghana had to foot over $800 million. That model is not sustainable. You cannot sell power, and then the third party would have to always take care of that. And it's the same with the IPP. So we're looking at a holistic approach, how to resolve the energy sector challenges. There have been several deliberations in the past few months to ensure that this problem is resolved.
I see, but we're faced with, we're still with the IPPs. According to what the minister is saying today, Car Powership, one of the major IPPs we have in this country, in the next 3 days, has given notice that they will shut down their plant because of the over $400 million we owe them. And if we don't make attempts to at least pay off some, they would have no option than to shut down their plants. So what's the immediate response or plan to this?
What's the reality is that we are still engaging Car Powership. The conversation with the IPPs never stop. We are trying to make sure that at least the cash waterfall mechanism works efficiently, and we'll find ways and means to structure the existing debt. I'm quite confident that on the 18th, there's no way Car Powership will shut down because the government is engaging them, consistently engaging them to ensure that the people of Ghana continue to sleep in light and not darkness.
Well, but while we're at it, we still have to deal with the shortfalls, right? According to the minister, some 30 billion cedis would have to be made available this year to pay up for the shortfalls. Why is that?
In fact, the 30 billion cedis as a result of ECG's shortfalls. So, as I mentioned earlier, every month, ECG has a shortfall of over 2 billion cedis. If you do the mathematics, in a year alone, if you do 12 months, you're looking at 24 billion plus other incidental costs. So that is what takes it to 30 billion. What is happening is that the minister has, together with ECG, identified some of the challenges that they face. For example, most of the MMDAs do not pay electricity bills, which is unfortunate. Cabinet has directed that all MMDAs should pay for the electricity they use. Or what Cabinet has done is that there is an exemption for about 5 institutions. And even under the 5 institutions, it is not 100%. So under the 5 institutions, for example, if you take education, lecture halls, labs, all of them are covered. But dormitories and other things are not covered. So we're trying as much as possible to be efficient so that ECG can collect the revenue that it has to. So once ECG is able to improve its revenue collection, some of these challenges that we have will pay. And then the first, like I mentioned, the first challenge is to make sure that all MMDs are paying. We have cabinet's approval, and then definitely moving forward. And even those with exemptions, it is not that they are not going to pay. They will pay, but what will happen is that the Ministry of Finance will use a portion of their budget for goods and service to pay the electricity bill. So in effect, everybody is going to pay for the electricity that they consume. That's the first point. The second point is that no company will survive with 40% losses. See, you can't survive with that kind of loss. And that is what we've been engaging the Electricity Company of Ghana to improve. The third thing is that we need to take a second look at the tariff structure. If we continue with the current tariff structure, definitely some of these challenges will still be there. Once these problems are solved, like I said, they are structural. Once we deal with these problems, definitely we should see a better energy sector and a total drastic reduction in the debts that we've seen.
And maybe finally, before I let you go on this one, we've tried this before, having the MMDAs pay for the power they consume. I recall in the actual the late John Evans Tamil's regime, there was a director he gave himself to the Energy Ministry at the time to install prepaid meters in all MMDAs so that they will pay for the power, and then if it goes off, they are off. That project was carried out to a point and it was halted. So, yes, the directive again has come for the MMDs to pay for the power that they consume. What is going to be done differently? Because we know what happens there.
What I can tell you is that the minister responsible for energy and green transition is committed to ensure that this is done. This will not be business as usual. Like you mentioned, yes, we've tried it in the past, but the commitment is different this time. We've had cabinet approval to ensure that this is done, and we have the support of His Excellency the President to make sure that all MMDs pay for electricity. So we are confident that this time the approach will work. You see, Alfred, where we find ourselves, and with time, I'm sure that everybody will have access to the books when it comes to the energy sector. We are at a very critical point. Very critical point. If we don't turn the sector around, I'm telling you, the sector may end up collapsing. We inherited a very dire sector in the energy sector. And if we don't turn things around, I'm telling you that eventually it's going to be suicidal. So that is why the minister is committed. He's taking all the steps, all the bold initiatives with the support of the president to ensure that these challenges are dealt with. The minister also said notice that we realize that there are saboteurs in the system. Anybody sabotaging the system, encouraging the inefficiency. For example, we find some officers of ECG underbailing some companies. We find some doing illegal connection. Anybody who does that will be outrightly dismissed. That should tell you the commitment that the government has in resolving the challenges in the energy sector.
I appreciate this. And so what was it? The word of assurance to the people listening to us that we're not going to experience any crisis in the coming days, despite the shortfalls and the lack of funds that we're faced with?
No, we are not going to. I assure the people of Ghana, through my minister, that the people of Ghana are still going to enjoy stable electricity, as that's been the case over the period. And that anyone who has fears should allay those fears. Measures have been put in place to ensure that there won't be any load shedding.
But even before this, there are people who are experiencing power outages in their areas. Some it goes off at night, it comes back or it's restored in the morning. What's going on?
Alfred, there are challenges in the sector, and that's why I mentioned earlier that these are challenges that we need to deal with. Let me use my area, for example. So I live in an area where the capacity of the transformer, for example, if your transformer, let me even give an example for CHRAJ. CHRAJ was built for a place maybe for about 30 homes or 40 homes. You will know the capacity is supposed to. Now CHRAJ has become an urban area, it's a prime area. The pressure on the transformer at the end of the day has changed. What it means is that you need new investments. You need to change some of these transformers, cable, to ensure that people enjoy. So sometimes once it goes overload, there will be trips, and these are some of the challenges that we experience. The reality is that whether you look at the data from Gridco or from ECG, we are not shedding load. We have enough to generate electricity for the people of Ghana. So once we are not shedding load, definitely there's no need. In fact, there's no doom. So if you're experiencing challenges, definitely you have to get in touch with ECG for you to understand. For example, last week there was somebody's area that they had consistent power outages. Apparently, it had to do with the cable. They fixed it, and then today they sent a message saying that they are grateful for that. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing, but we are not shedding load. We are not shedding load at all.
Well, thank you very much, Richmond, for your time. Appreciate it as always, and we'll be connecting some more as and when the issues come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred.
Richmond Rockson is a private legal practitioner, and he speaks for the Energy Ministry. He's the head of public affairs for the Energy Ministry. And you're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM.